Hey, guys, you've heard of angels, white robes, swan wings, a soft glow in the sky. But that's not what the prophets saw. Not even close. What they saw had eyes in every direction, wheels inside wheels, faces that never turned, and wings that hummed like thunder about to break. This wasn't a symbol. It wasn't a dream. It was an encounter. And once you see it, you'll never speak of angels the same way again. Tonight, you'll encounter biblically accurate angels. And it's not at all what they told you they're like. So, before you get too cozy, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this strange little corner of quiet storytelling. And drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's strangely comforting to know who else is drifting off with us around the world. Now get comfortable, let the day melt away, and we'll drift back together into the quiet corners of the past. You've stopped asking for signs. At first, you begged. When the temple burned and the priests went silent, you cried out. When your people were chained to one another like livestock and marched from Jerusalem in shame, you wailed. When they made you settle in this foreign land, by a river that smells like fish and memory, you whispered prayers into the reeds until your voice cracked. You told yourself it was just a test, that God would speak, that heaven was holding its breath before the rescue. But rescue never came. Not for the elders, not for the city, not for you. So you stopped praying out loud. You still mouth the words sometimes, out of habit, not hope. The sacred syllables feel hollow in your throat, like dust in a jar that once held oil. You still keep the scrolls in their wrappings, still face west when you kneel, still recite the Shema in the dark. But it's not belief anymore. It's rhythm, a muscle twitch, a memory of obedience that no longer feels like devotion. The others call you priest, prophet, exile. You answer to all of it, but none of it fits anymore. You feel like a ruin pretending to be a man. You listen when they speak of dreams, of promises, of someday. You nod, you smile. You don't say what you really think, that heaven forgot your name a long time ago. The days blur. Babylon buzzes with its own gods, its own omens. The people here build towers to reach the sky and carve prayers into bricks like magic can be baked into clay. You walk among them unnoticed. A man with strange clothes and quiet eyes. You keep your head low. You speak little. You remember the temple, the altar, the smell of incense rising like morning fog. You remember what it felt like when the glory rested. You remember the heat, the hush, the way your bones ached just to be near it, and then you remember when it left. Now the world feels dull, like it's been muted. You stand by the river each morning, not to prophesy, but to count the clouds. You look for patterns in the sky, the way a dying man might stare at smoke, hoping it will form a face. Sometimes you think you see something, a shimmer, a flicker, a thread of gold, but then it's gone, and you're left with silence again, thick, heavy, familiar. Then one morning, the wind shifts. You notice it first in the way the reeds bend, not away from the east as usual, but toward it, as if something is pulling them forward. The birds stop singing. The insects vanish. Even the river holds its breath. You feel the hair rise on your arms, but you don't move. You can't. The air grows dense, almost metallic. Your tongue sticks to the roof of your mouth. There is no sound, no voice, no whisper from heaven. Just a hum, low at first, like a tremor beneath the earth, then rising, slow, steady, like a drumbeat inside your chest. You look up. The clouds have thickened into a single shape, rolling, alive, pulsing with light. It comes from the north, not from Babylon, not from the city, not from any place men control. It moves like a storm, but it doesn't scatter. It glows. The sky flashes, not with lightning, but with something older, wilder. You try to speak, but your throat locks. The hum grows louder. It's in your teeth now, in your ribs. You drop to your knees without thinking, not in reverence, in surrender, in terror, in awe. The wind wraps around you like a shroud. The sky tears open, and suddenly, you know, he is not silent. He was never silent. You were simply too far, too numb, too mortal to hear it. Until now. You don't remember the march in perfect detail, only the way your feet ached by the third day and how the dust coated your teeth like grit from a broken tomb. You were too young to carry a sword, but old enough to understand what loss smelled like. The smoke from the temple still lingers in your lungs. Some days, it rises in your chest when you breathe too deep. They dragged you east with the others, roped in silence and shame. Old men stumbled beside you. Women wept into their shawls. Children clung to wooden figurines like they could pray their way back to the walls of the city. But the walls had fallen, and so did your childhood. Babylon did not greet you with violence. That would have made sense. Babylon welcomed you with order, with irrigation canals and perfect stone streets and soldiers who didn't need to shout to make you obey. The air here is thick with perfumes that make your stomach turn and oils that leave stains on your sleeves. Everything glitters, even the idols, especially the idols. Their gods are golden beasts with eyes that do not blink. Their gods are statues that shine brighter than your memories. You want to scream every time you pass one. You want to tell the children to look away. You want to remember what holy used to feel like. But you forget more every day. They let you live. They even let you build. Your people were good at surviving. Always were. You helped them plant in foreign soil and kept your head down while the merchants mocked your sandals. You learned their tongue. You ate their food. You kept the Torah in a scroll wrapped in cloth and buried under your bed like a body you weren't ready to grieve. And each morning, you walked to the river to pray. Not because you believed it would change anything, but because it reminded you of the Jordan, and because silence is easier when it sits beside water. You tried to face Jerusalem when you knelt, but sometimes you forgot which way it was. The days began to blur. The east bled into the west. Your voice cracked mid-psalm. You started skipping words. You started skipping mornings. Eventually, you sat instead of kneeling. Eventually, you stopped speaking the name. The exile didn't just take your home. It took the rhythm, the scaffolding, the sacred. You began to feel like a scroll left in the rain. Words smeared, edges curling, the story still present but unreadable. Your people still call you priest. Some say prophet. You nod when they do. You offer quiet answers and help settle their disputes. You're good at looking wise, good at folding grief into silence. But at night, you still wake gasping for breath, your hands gripping your mat like it might roll back into temple stone. There are days when the memory of Jerusalem feels sharper than the city ever did. The smell of frankincense, the hum of voices rising during the evening sacrifice, the way the sun broke through the eastern gate. You remember carrying the basin. You remember watching your father wash blood from the altar stones, his hands trembling not from weakness but from wonder. You were going to wear the linen too. You were going to serve in the holy place. You were going to grow old in the shadow of the ark. Now you serve nothing. Now your prayers fall into a river that doesn't understand Hebrew. The water is thick and sluggish and brown with the waste of an empire. It doesn't carry your words. It swallows them. Sometimes you whisper anyway. Not out of faith, out of habit, out of longing. You ask if he still listens, if he still remembers, if he still sees you. The river doesn't answer, but it mourns. It always mourns. And somehow, that feels like something. It started with the clouds. You were standing near the riverbank, sandals half sunk in the mud, trying to remember what it felt like to believe your prayers did anything. The sun was setting behind the towers of the city, casting long shadows across the reeds. You squinted toward the horizon, more out of boredom than expectation, and then it happened. A shape, not a bird, not a beast. A form, vague, impossible, wrong. It moved against the wind, folding and unfolding like something breathing behind a veil. You blinked, rubbed your eyes, told yourself it was dust, or fatigue, or some Babylonian trick of the atmosphere. But deep down, you knew better. It had seen you. You didn't tell anyone at first. There are things you can't say out loud without sounding like the kind of man people avoid. You tried to forget, tried to wash it from your thoughts with ritual, with silence, with long recitations of Isaiah, until your voice cracked and your tongue went dry. You told yourself it was stress. That exile plays tricks on the mind. That maybe this was the beginning of madness. A slow unraveling that would finally release you from the tension of pretending to be sane in a place that isn't holy. Then it happened again. This time, in the fire. You were helping another exile light a cooking flame behind his home, bending close to the embers, coaxing breath into the coals. You leaned in too far, and for half a moment, the heat washed your vision in gold. And in the gold, a face, no mouth, no eyes, just outline, presence, watching. It didn't flicker like smoke. It didn't waver like heat. It just stared. You fell backward so quickly you kicked over the pot and burned your hand on the stone. The man laughed, asked if you were getting clumsy in your old age. You laughed with him, but you didn't sleep that night. You began to feel them at the edges, not always with your eyes. Sometimes in the hairs rising on your arms without warning. Sometimes in the weight pressing against your chest before dawn. You told yourself it was the wind, the heat, the grief, the exile. But the exile was old now, and the grief was dull. This was something else. This was new. They do not speak, not with voices, but you feel their silence. It's not empty. It's full, dense, intentional, like a question waiting to be asked. Like a warning that doesn't need to explain itself. You've felt judgment before, in the temple, in the faces of the elders, in the mouths of prophets, reciting curses with trembling lips. But this is different. This is not anger. This is not wrath. This is watchfulness. You wonder if they are sentries, stationed in the seams between worlds, leaning down to see if anyone still remembers the old ways. You wonder if they are scouts of something larger, something approaching. You wonder if they are angels, or something older than angels. They do not feel soft. They do not feel safe. They feel like the inside of the burning bush, like the voice that spoke from Sinai and shook the bones of every man in the camp. They feel like the line between clean and unclean. You stop looking for them after a while, but they keep showing up. Sometimes in firelight, sometimes in water, sometimes behind the eyes of a stranger who stares too long before walking away. You tell yourself you're imagining it. You tell yourself it's a side effect of loneliness. But even in the stillness, you feel it. That tightening in the air, that hum behind your breath. You've read about the watchers, the ones who fell, the ones who didn't. You don't know which ones these are, only that they don't blink, and they don't sleep. You lie face down in the dirt, not because you were told to, not because someone called your name, but because your legs gave out before your mind could catch up. The air around you has turned to stone, thick, unmoving, too heavy to breathe. You try to lift your head, just enough to see where the sound is coming from, but the weight pins you there, forehead pressed to the ground, arms trembling beneath you like reeds in floodwater. You taste dust. You taste copper. You feel the hum again, the one that doesn't come from earth or sky, but from somewhere older, somewhere higher. You were not praying, you were not fasting, you were not performing some act of holiness that should warrant an answer. You were sitting beside the river with your sandals off, tracing spirals into the dirt with your thumb, wondering if God still speaks to men or if all the stories were just the fading echoes of a fire that went cold. You were not seeking a vision. You were barely keeping your faith stitched together. And still, he came. You feel it first in the wind, not the soft kind that moves through fig trees or the sharp gusts that carry desert sand into your eyes. This wind has no temperature, no direction. It moves around you like it knows your name. It presses into your skin, not to harm, but to reveal, as if you were a scroll being unrolled against your will. It moves your thoughts out of the way. It makes space inside your chest for something unbearable, something holy. Then comes the sound, a roar, not of water or beast or army, but of something more alive than any of them. It rolls down from the north, where no storm should be, where the sky has been empty for weeks. You hear it before you see it. A great churning, a spinning, a fire that crackles without smoke. You lift your face, just barely, and squint into the glare, eyes burning as the shape begins to form. It isn't a storm. It looks like one. It sounds like one. But it moves with purpose. It moves with intelligence. It is not chaotic. It is choreographed. You see the fire first. It doesn't burn like the sacrifices did. It dances without eating. It pulses with color you don't have words for, bronze and amber and something in between. Then, through the fire, you see motion. Not lightning, not wind, wings, limbs, forms. They move too fast to describe and too perfectly to doubt. And in the center of all of it, wheels. Not dragged, not spun, just turning, like they are held up by will alone. You press your face back to the dirt, not because you want to, but because something in you remembers, something ancient, something buried in the marrow of your bones. This is what it felt like in the Holy of Holies. This is what the priests whispered about but never dared describe. You are not worthy to see this. And yet, you are seeing it. You expect judgment. You expect death. You expect your breath to be taken from your lungs as payment for the audacity of this moment. But it doesn't come. The presence doesn't crush you. It doesn't pass over you like fire over thorns. It stays. It hovers. It waits. You want to ask why. You want to ask who. You want to ask what this means. But your mouth won't open. Your lips are clay. Your voice has fled. All you can do is tremble, and all you can feel is the overwhelming certainty that this is not a dream. This is God, and He has arrived without warning. They arrive like lightning, not in the way lightning splits a sky or shatters a tree, but in the way it owns a moment, obliterates silence, rewrites the meaning of light itself. You feel them before you see them. The fire announces them, not with crackle or smoke, but with pressure, with presence. You lift your face from the dirt only because the force has shifted, not lessened. Your eyes sting, not from ash, but from the raw clarity of what stands before you. 4 of them. They do not speak. They do not blink. They do not move like men. You do not know what to call them. You were taught the names of animals. You were taught the ranks of soldiers, the lineage of priests, the names of angels who carry messages and warnings. These are not any of those. These are something else. They are tall, taller than any living thing has the right to be, but their limbs do not bend the way yours do. Their stance is rigid, yet their bodies ripple like flame, not wild, not out of control, purposeful, pure. They stand in a square, each one facing out, and yet they move together without turning. When one shifts, the others follow, not in reaction, but in unity. You realize quickly they do not need to turn. They already see everything. Each of them burns, not with consuming flame, but with internal fire. Their skin, if it can be called that, gleams like burnished bronze, hot without heat, glowing without casting shadow. There is no smoke. There is no smell of burning flesh. The fire is not eating them. It is them, the way water is wet, the way breath is air. These beings are fire, and they do not flinch in it. They each have 4 faces. You don't understand how it works, how it fits, how it doesn't pull their form into madness, but you see it clearly. The front face, human. The right, lion. The left, ox. The back, eagle. They do not shift between them. They hold all at once. There is no expression, no hint of softness or wrath. Just being, just watching, just wait. Their legs are straight, rigid like pillars, and their feet are not feet at all but hooves, cleft and gleaming like molten stone. Each movement they make sends ripples through the earth, not with sound but with recognition. Creation knows them. The dirt under your knees knows them. The wind that wraps around your shoulders knows them. Their wings stretch upward and outward, each creature with 4, 2 reaching toward the heavens, 2 covering themselves. They touch one another at the tips. They do not flap. They do not flutter. They hum. A sound like 1,000 bees whispering the name of God. Beneath the wings, you see arms. Human arms, powerful and veiled in light. Their hands move with intention, not idle, not clenched, just waiting. You know those hands could destroy cities. You also know they might cradle a dying child without dropping a spark. But you would not ask for either. You are not ready to be touched by fire. They do not speak, but somehow you know they are not here for you. Not entirely. You are a witness, not a participant. They have come with him. They are his entourage, his heralds, his throne bearers. And yet they do not announce him with trumpet or scroll. They announce him by existing. You feel yourself trembling again. Not because they are cruel, not because they are angry, but because they are holy in a way that makes everything inside you feel unclean. You once thought you knew what holiness was. You thought it came in candles and linen and carefully measured rituals. You were wrong. Holiness has wings that blaze, hooves that spark, eyes that do not close. Holiness has 4 faces and no room for your small ideas of reverence. They stand there, these 4 living creatures, these flames shaped like obedience, and you know you will never again look at the word angel without trembling. They are not messengers. They are fire, and they are alive. You try not to stare, but there is no place else to look. The light is too thick above them, the ground too sacred beneath. So your eyes land on their faces, not because you are curious, but because you are terrified. Because you need to understand what is watching you. Each one has 4, not carved, not symbolic, not metaphors etched into stone for priests to argue about. Real, living, layered upon each other like truths too deep to divide. The first face you recognize is the human one. It stares forward, fixed, unmoving. The brow is smooth, not wrinkled by thought or emotion. The eyes do not dart. They rest, heavy, eternal. It should comfort you. It doesn't. It looks like you, but it is not you. It is what humanity was meant to be before shame rewrote its shape. Then you see the lion. Majestic, massive, jaws closed, but you can feel the sound it could make. Not a roar, but a verdict. Its eyes are gold, not like treasure but like judgment. Its face doesn't snarl or smile. It simply is, draped in a mane of fire that doesn't flicker. You can feel it staring through you, not into your thoughts, past them, into your foundation. On the opposite side, the ox. Its face is broad, unmoving, ancient. It carries the weight of earth and sacrifice. There is no fury in its gaze, only endurance. Its silence is louder than thunder. You look at it and suddenly remember altars, blood, burnt offerings curling into sky, the long, slow ache of holiness that costs something. Its eyes do not accuse, they expect. And behind them all, the eagle. You only glimpse it for a moment. A sharp profile, beak curved like a blade, eyes sharpened by flight. It does not walk, it does not dwell, it soars. It sees everything at once, from above, from beyond. Its gaze is not limited to the now. It sees before, after, and the edge of what is coming, and it has already seen you. They shift with every breath, not like movement, like unfolding. One moment, the human face is turned toward you, then the lion, then the ox, then the eagle. Though you did not see it turn, you cannot trace the motion. It simply changes, as if time does not apply to them, as if direction was never meant to constrain something that holy. You do not know which face is looking at you. Worse, you suspect they all are. They are not arranged in order. They are not symmetrical. They are complete. You keep looking for hierarchy, for logic, for something your mind can label and tame. But these creatures were not designed for understanding. They were designed to carry glory. Your heart pounds like a prisoner in your chest. You look down, ashamed, then back again, drawn. The faces shift again, and this time you feel something unravel. A thread inside your memory pulls tight. You recall a verse from the scroll of Moses. Cherubim placed east of the garden, flaming, watching, guarding what was lost. You wonder if these are the same. You want to cry, not from fear, from recognition, from a grief too deep to name. These are not beasts. These are not myths. These are sentinels of Eden, bearers of something the world forgot. And you are just a man with a name and lungs and dust clinging to your knees. You are not worthy of being seen by one of those faces, let alone all four. You stare at their feet because you can't look at their faces anymore, not for long, not without something inside you twisting. The faces speak of glory. The faces carry mystery, but the limbs tell you what these beings are capable of and what they're here to do. Their legs are long and straight, with no bend at the knee, no softness in the joint. They stand without sway, without shift. There is no rest in their posture, only readiness. Their movements are too smooth, too synchronized, like they've never known weight, only command. Their legs gleam like polished bronze, not dulled by age or soot, but burnished bright, like the interior of a furnace. And their feet are wrong. They're not human. They aren't paws or claws or talons either. They are hooves, not rough or splintered like the feet of livestock. These hooves shine, gleam, reflect the fire around them as if forged in it. They are split, cleft, like the beasts once brought to the altar, but there is no blood here, no ash. Just the glint of metal and the tremble of earth beneath their step. They are the feet of judgment. They are the feet that crushed Eden's threshold and now carry the weight of glory like it's light as breath. And when they move, the ground does not shake in chaos. It shudders in agreement. You think of the priests, how they used to wash before entering the court. You think of sandals unlaced near the bush that burned. You think of the cherubim embroidered into the curtain of the temple. You think of all the ways God tried to prepare you for this and realize nothing could have. Then you see their hands. They are not bound to arms in the way yours are. They emerge, suddenly, unexpectedly, from beneath their wings, slipping through feathers that shimmer like stormlight. The hands are human, but they are not yours. They are broader, stronger, sharper in the edges of each knuckle and joint. They move with a kind of caution that doesn't feel like hesitation. It feels like calculation, like mercy deciding whether or not to act. Each hand flexes slowly, as if feeling the air. Not nervous, not curious, ready. The fingers curl, then release, like they are gripping something you can't see. They hover with a kind of reverence, but they do not shake. You imagine what those hands could carry. Mountains, altars, you. The thought makes your stomach turn. There is nothing clumsy in them. No twitch, no wasted gesture. These hands were made for precision. Without being told that they could tear the veil between heaven and earth in a single motion, or mend a broken soul with the gentleness of breath. Lift or destroy. That's the choice they hold in every movement. That's the balance you see in every knuckle. The hands of a man, the feet of a beast, the glow of heaven. You try to decide which part terrifies you more, the burning hooves or the fingers shaped like your own, because one speaks of power and the other of intimacy. You were not meant to be near them, and yet here you are, barefoot in foreign soil, watching heaven stand still before it decides what to do next. You do not speak, you do not move, you wait, because in their limbs is the language of God, and you are still learning how to read it. And if they reach for you, you don't know whether you will rise or vanish. Their wings move, but they make no sound. Not the kind you expect. No gust, no flutter, no burst of air pushing back the dust. You thought wings were supposed to beat like war drums, echo like birds in flight, scatter leaves with their power. But these wings don't move like anything that belongs to this world. They move like thought, like breath, like prophecy, unspoken. They stretch out, upward first, as if reaching towards something even they do not fully see, then outward, unfolding until they brush against one another in a circle of fire and motion. They touch without friction. They touch like they're remembering something sacred. You watch one wing curve gently until it meets another, tips barely grazing, and yet the air around them shifts like the moment before a storm. Not chaos, not violence, just pressure. The kind that makes your ears ring and your chest tighten, as though your lungs were no longer yours to fill. The wings themselves are not feathered, not entirely. They are not like dove wings or eagle wings. They shimmer in layers, not of bone and sinew, but of light. Light woven into motion. Light wrapped in flame. You can't tell where one ends and the next begins. They overlap, bend, fold, open. There are too many to count, too fluid to number. Each creature has 4, and yet it feels like more. They move with such precision, such rhythm, that they blur into something infinite, something eternal. You feel it in your ribs, not pain, not heat. A hum, low, resonant, ancient. It builds like thunder behind the mountains, waiting for permission to crash. But it doesn't crash. It lingers. You realize quickly that it's not just sound, it's presence. These wings carry something more than force. They carry glory, not as a burden, but as a calling. 2 of the wings stretch out to meet the others, tips pressed in unity, like hands clasped mid-battle. The other 2 cover their bodies, not in shame, in reverence, as though they know what they are made of, as though even they must veil themselves in the presence of the one they serve. It's strange to see something so powerful choose to cover itself. Stranger still to feel small in the face of their humility. You're used to the powerful flaunting their might, drawing lines in the dust with swords and titles. But these creatures hide, not because they're afraid, but because they understand what holiness requires. Still, you watch them touch, and every time they do, you feel it. It's not a sound, it's a knowing, a ripple through your chest, like the moment before a sentence you can't unspeak, the space between thunder and lightning, the space between command and consequence, the space where heaven holds its breath. You try to imagine what would happen if they moved in full, if they spread those wings wide, and let the fire consume the wind, the dirt, the sky, but they don't. They stay where they are, balanced, waiting, not restrained, obedient, like they only need one word. You feel tears on your face and don't remember when they started, because everything in you knows that what you're seeing isn't performance. It's not theater. It's not meant to impress. It's meant to testify. Their wings are not decorations. They are declarations of power restrained, of beauty armored in fire, of a glory too dangerous to be uncovered all at once. You look at their wings again, and this time you don't feel fear. You feel ache. You feel the weight of what has been lost since Eden, what's been veiled, what's been waiting. You feel the breath of God, and it's coming from behind those wings. They don't walk. They don't march. They don't float like ghosts or glide like birds. They move the way flame dances across the top of a brazier, alive, deliberate, unpredictable. Every shift is sudden, but never wrong. Every turn is sharp, but never chaotic. They flash from one place to another like sparks snapping from coals, too fast to follow, too precise to be chance. One moment, they're standing in perfect stillness. The next, they're somewhere else entirely, unchanged, undiminished, undisturbed. And in the space between them, the fire breathes. It doesn't rise from the ground. It doesn't fall from the sky. It exists in the air between their bodies, burning, swirling, curling like a serpent made of lightning. You don't see it spread. You see it live. It flickers between their legs and wings, twining around their bronze limbs like it belongs there, like it was always part of them. It pulses without smoke, glows without consuming. It does not need fuel. It is not hungry. It is aware. You feel its heat, but it does not burn your skin. You feel its gaze, but it does not have eyes. And yet, somehow, you know it's looking at you. Not in curiosity, not in judgment. It's looking with knowledge, deep knowledge, the kind that drills through the outer layers of your name and history and pride and finds the raw core of what you are. It sees everything. Every failure you've tried to forget, every motive you've tried to bury under good behavior, every secret still clinging to your breath like fog. The fire doesn't flinch. Neither do the creatures. They move again. 4 bodies in unison, flashing like blades drawn from the same sheath. The fire responds. It trails them, chases them, leads them. You don't know if it obeys or commands, only that it's bound to them like marrow to bone. You can't tell where they end and the fire begins. You're not even sure they're separate at all. You want to look away, but you can't. Because somewhere inside the flicker and flare, somewhere inside the brilliance, something calls. Not with words, not with a voice, but with recognition. The kind you feel when lightning splits the air and your body reacts before your brain understands. The kind that makes you step back from the edge of a cliff without knowing why. The kind that makes you drop to your knees and forget how to speak. It doesn't move like any fire you've ever seen. It doesn't crackle. It doesn't consume. It doesn't grow. It simply is. A presence shaped like flame, a breath shaped like judgment, a silence shaped like truth. And it does not go dim. Even when the creatures stop moving, even when their wings fold slightly against their backs, even when their hooves settle back into the dirt like the tremors of heaven have paused, the fire remains. It lingers in the air like an unanswered question. It coils slowly, deliberately, between their feet and above their heads, wrapping around the invisible, sacred center that holds all of this together. You feel your heart pounding, not with fear, not with wonder, with exposure, because you know, whatever this fire is, it has seen you. Not just the man you are in exile, not just the priest without a temple. It has seen the boy memorizing the scrolls, the son too afraid to ask why the altar never spoke back, the prophet in waiting, wondering if his silence was punishment or protection. The fire has seen it all, and it has not left. It watches. It waits. And though it has not spoken, you already know it will. They do not walk. You've watched soldiers march through city gates with iron souls and eyes like stone. You've seen priests move through the temple with measured steps, their feet tracing invisible lines of reverence across sacred floors. You've even watched children run, all elbows and breath, too loud to be graceful. But this is something else. This is movement without warning. This is transit without space. This is lightning wearing form. They flash, not with brilliance alone, but with intention. They do not stumble. They do not hesitate. They vanish and arrive in the same breath, the same blink. There is no arc to their travel, no rise and fall of footsteps across ground. One moment they are before you, the next they are beside you, and the next above. They move like wind, remembering how to burn. They do not cut through the world. They thread it. Each motion cracks something inside you, not your bones, your thinking. You try to follow with your eyes, but your vision can't keep up. You turn your head, and they're already gone. You reach with thought, and they've already changed direction. Your mind chokes on the speed of it. They're faster than fear, faster than comprehension. They're not obeying gravity or distance. They're obeying glory. You blink, and they rearrange. Not randomly, not frantically. Like choreography pulled from the breath of God. There is rhythm to their chaos, precision beneath the impossible. Every movement feels predestined, as if their steps were etched into the air long before you ever arrive to witness them. They don't chase, they don't flee, they manifest. They arrive exactly where they're meant to, without the indignity of travel. You want to look away, but there's nowhere to rest your eyes. The sky opens and closes around them. Dust lifts where they pass, but there are no footprints. The wind shifts, but never answers. They are here, and then they are not. And then they are here again, as if time skipped a beat just to let them move freely through it. You've heard lightning before, the way it splits the heavens and stuns the breath from your chest. You've seen it tear across clouds like divine handwriting. That's what they move like language too fast to read, like a sentence shouted across galaxies, never pausing for punctuation. Your knees give in again, not from weight, from disorientation. You can't tell whether it's day or night anymore. The light around them pulses without a source. Shadows twist and break before reforming. The earth beneath you feels stable, but everything else bends. Not violently, just enough to remind you that this isn't your domain. These are not beings that adapt to Earth. Earth adapts to them. They move again. A flash to your left, and something behind your eyes screams. Not in fear, in recognition. You've read about the messengers of God, but this isn't delivery. This is presence. This is majesty in motion. They are not here to speak yet. They are here to be seen, and even that is more than you can carry. You try to breathe deeply. You can't. You try to stand. You don't. The only part of you still working is the part that watches, the part that knows something divine is happening, the part that wants to weep without knowing why. They flicker across the sky again, and your vision doubles. You see them in front of you, but also through you, like they've passed not just around your body, but through the threads of your memory. They are light and lightning, flame and form, too quick to count, too deliberate to doubt. They do not walk, they do not run, they arrive. And your soul has never felt slower. You notice them only after the fire has calmed enough for your eyes to adjust, not entirely, just enough to see what stands beside each creature. Not limbs, not weapons, wheels, but not like any wheel you've ever seen. Not round things made for carts or chariots, not carved from cedar or hammered from bronze. These are something else, something impossible, something alive. They hover. That's the first thing you realize. They don't rest against the ground or spin against the dust. They float, steady, silent, fixed in place, as if gravity forgot them. But even hovering, they pulse with weight. The kind of weight that doesn't come from mass, but from purpose. You can feel it in the soles of your feet, like a storm anchored to the air. Each wheel is a wheel within a wheel, two circles woven through each other, not stacked, not side by side, interlocked in a way that makes no sense to your eyes. You try to trace their geometry, try to find where one ends and the other begins, but it doesn't work. They defy direction. One moment you think they'll turn forward, then sideways, then in a direction you have no name for. They move like thought. They move like the creatures. When the beings shift, those burning bodies of wings and hooves and eyes, the wheels move with them. Not behind, not beneath, beside, as if they are extensions of each other. As if the wheels know what the creatures will do before they do it. When the angels rise, the wheels rise. When they pause, the wheels wait. You watch closely, trying to see if there's a signal, a command. There isn't. They move with the same spirit. Then you see the rims, and your breath leaves you. Eyes, dozens of them, hundreds, wrapped around the outer ring of each wheel like stars, stitched into metal. They don't blink. They don't flinch. They don't look away. Each one is open, watching, aware. You don't know if they all see the same thing or if each stares in its own direction, but you can feel them watching you, not like a man watches a stranger. Like the sky watches a shadow. Like light watching darkness try to hide. You flinch and one wheel tilts slightly, not toward you, but as if acknowledging the reaction. You try not to move, try to become smaller, less visible, but the eyes don't stop. They don't narrow or widen. They just are, full of perception, full of knowing. It should terrify you. It does. But more than that, it humbles you. You thought you understood what it meant for God to see. You thought divine sight was metaphor, something poetic, distant, filtered through prophets and priests. But this isn't filtered. This isn't poetic. This is mechanical and mystical and immediate. These wheels see you, every part of you, past and present, and maybe even what's still unfolding. The fire, the wings, the faces, they announce holiness. But the wheels are witness. They turn without turning. They see without rest. They accompany without delay. You realize now, they are not separate from the creatures. They are part of them, or perhaps what holds them, carries them. You think of thrones, of chariots, of glory too vast to walk on its own. You think of how kings are never alone when they travel. And you wonder, if these are only the wheels, what must the throne look like? You do not know how long you stare. Long enough for your knees to ache. Long enough for the dust to settle back into stillness. Long enough to realize that whatever world you thought you lived in before, it was smaller than the truth. And the truth has wheels, covered in eyes, turning in silence beside creatures made of fire. You squint into the shimmer. The heat from their presence warps the air, bending light like metal in a furnace. You thought you'd seen the full measure of terror. The four faces, the hooved limbs, the fire between bones. But this is something else entirely. The wheels. They do not roll. They do not drag or slide. They do not obey the earth. They move like they remember what creation forgot. There are 4 of them, one beside each living creature. Their size is impossible to measure. Their rims stretch high above your head, casting shadows that bend sideways even when the sun does not. They gleam with the sheen of polished stone. Beryl, maybe, but not like any you've seen. It's too clean, too alive. It pulses like muscle, like breath. And they spin, not like a chariot wheel, not like anything bound to dirt or road. They twist in every direction at once, forward and sideways and somehow upward, as if they are not limited to axes or logic. You try to follow the motion with your eyes, but they betray you. Your vision skips, loses place, then gives up. Your mind clutches at metaphors, orbits, gyroscopes, solar systems, but nothing holds. These are not mechanical, they are not made, they are revealed. And in the center of each, there is a second wheel, interlocked with the first, not attached, not welded, just inside, like a thought within a thought, like a secret tucked inside thunder. One turns and the other follows, but not in the way you expect. There's no friction, no grinding, just harmony that your bones recognize, but your brain cannot define. The longer you stare, the more it feels like watching a heartbeat from the inside. They do not move aimlessly. When the creatures rise, they rise. When the creatures pause, they hover, humming just above the ground, as if gravity has forgotten its duty. When they move, it is not with effort, but with knowing, to as though motion is their native language, and we have only learned to crawl. You sense that they do not turn because turning would imply limitation, and these beings know none. Their movement is not dictated by terrain, but by will. Your knees are locked, not in reverence, not in fear, in paralysis. Something about their presence makes your own skin feel fraudulent, like flesh has no business standing here. The rims of the wheels are covered with eyes. You counted them once, tried to anyway, but you stopped when it became clear they were not meant to be numbered. They blink without blinking. They see without shifting. And when the wheels move, the eyes follow something you cannot see. There is no axle, no mount, no frame, and yet nothing falters. The wheels don't fall. They don't stumble. They do not break apart or collapse under weight. They move because they are made of motion itself. You whisper this to yourself, to motion itself, and realize you are trying to tame them with language, trying to press them into the shape of something explainable. You cannot. They hum as they spin, but not with gears, not with sound. You feel it more than hear it, like a resonance, like a frequency that speaks directly to the blood. It's the sound of intention, of cosmic architecture in motion. You think of galaxies, of atoms, of everything in between, and you wonder if these wheels hold the same language as both. You wonder if they were there in the beginning, beneath the voice that said, "Let there be." They pass in front of you, and the fire between them dances higher, responding not to air, but to alignment. Something about the creatures, the wheels, and the flame between them operates as one, not coordinated, not mechanical, but fused, alive. Each step of the creatures pulses through the wheels. Each flicker of the wheels echoes in the flame. You realize they are not companions to the angels. They are extensions, not separate, not auxiliary, one being expressed in parts. You are not meant to understand. You feel that now. You are meant to witness, to tremble, to forget how to explain, because what you've seen is not movement. It is glory in motion. You thought you knew what it meant to be seen by a parent, by a priest, by a stranger in the market who lingers too long. But this is different. This is not attention. This is not awareness. This is exposure. There are eyes, not 2, not 10, but dozens. And they are everywhere, on the rims of the wheels, on the inner rings, on the edges where flame meets motion. They're not stylized, not ornamental, not symbols of knowledge or wisdom. They are real, wet, open, watching. You try not to look, but there is nowhere else to fix your gaze. Wherever your eyes land, theirs are already there, unblinking, unmoved. They do not flinch when the flame roars. They do not blink when wind cuts across the plain. They do not narrow in curiosity or widen in fear. They do not close. Each eye is set like a jewel, but there is no beauty in it, no comfort. The lids are thin and taut, as if they once knew how to shut but forgot. The pupils don't dilate, the irises don't shimmer. Yet somehow, they see, not passively, not kindly. Their gaze lands on your face like a weight, like judgment without wrath, like truth, with no intention of softening itself. You take a breath and try to count, but it breaks you. There's no pattern, no symmetry, just endless vision. You tell yourself it's only the wheels, only 4 sets. But then you realize the creatures have them too. Under their wings, along their backs, in the space between feathers and flame, eyes, embedded into the movement of obedience itself. And now the air feels thinner. You want to hide. You want to step back, turn away, cover your face, like the seraphim do. But you can't move. Not because your legs betray you, but because your heart knows hiding would make no difference. You've already been seen, not just your posture, not just your fear. You feel them looking past your skin, past the dust on your robe, past the verses you memorized to feel holy. They are not watching your body. They are watching your soul. The eyes do not wander. They do not search. They do not lose focus, because they do not need to find you. They already have. You are held in their gaze like a sparrow in the talons of something vast. Not crushed, not wounded, just held, known, unhidden. You remember stories, tales told in temple courts and whispered behind veils. Stories about eyes of the Lord roaming the earth, about God seeing in secret. They never frightened you before. They felt distant, abstract, safe. But now you know. The eyes weren't a metaphor. They weren't a poetic flourish from an overzealous scribe. They are here, and they do not look away. A flicker of fire passes through the wheels and the eyes flash with it, not in pain, in response. Like nerves connected to something central, you realize then they are not merely observers. They are part of something greater, a mind that spans the throne and the flame and the roar. These eyes are not decoration, they are participation. You wonder if the eyes saw Eden, if they watched the gate close, if they watched the serpent speak and the woman reach, if they saw the flood rise, if they saw the blood on Abel's stone, if they watched Solomon build and watched him betray. You wonder how long they've been open. One eye, larger than the rest, pauses on you. If pause is even the right word for something that never stopped, you feel your thoughts recoil. You feel every half prayer you've ever muttered rise to the surface like smoke. The eye does not blink. It does not burn. It simply beholds. And somehow, that is worse. You want to cry, you want to scream that you're sorry. For what, you're not even sure. For all of it, maybe. For everything you never repented of because no one ever called it sin. But the eye doesn't accuse. It just sees. And in that moment, you understand. Holiness is not hidden behind a curtain. It is not locked in a sanctuary. It is not waiting for you to approach with incense and robes. Holiness sees. Holiness knows. Holiness is covered in eyes. Eyes that never blink. Eyes that never sleep. Eyes that never sleep. Look away. You try to explain it to yourself, to give it structure, to name it, to box it into something your tongue can carry. But there's no mechanism here. No chain. No axle. No yoke pulling the wheels behind the creatures. They don't follow like carts. They don't trail like dust. They move in sync, as if the same breath pushes through them both. As if a single will animates both body and orbit. As if they are not two things, but one being wearing two forms. The creatures move, and the wheels move. The creatures stop, and the wheels hover midair. still burning, still watching, but motionless, not paused, waiting, not like animals, not like machines, like something alive that knows how to listen. And you realize then, the wheels are not reacting, they are obeying, but not the creatures, not exactly. It's something deeper, something under both. The fire is the same colorless flame that coils through the creatures' bodies, pulses within the core of the wheels. It flashes, not with heat, but with intent. When one sparks, the other answers, like lightning arcing through muscle and tendon, like synapse and nerve. You wonder if the wheels feel pain, or glory, or if those words even apply to them anymore. They do not rotate to change direction. They don't need to. They spin in ways you weren't made to comprehend. When the creatures rise, the wheels rise. When they turn, without turning. The wheels align without delay, without hesitation, as if they've known the path before it was made, as if the road obeys them, not the other way around. You try to watch closely. You try to trace the movement back to some cause, a twitch of a wing, the flick of a gaze, a signal, but there is nothing. No visible trigger, no delay, just perfect unity. It is not choreography, it is possession. The same spirit that lives in the creature lives in the wheel. And suddenly the scripture you learned as a child unearths itself like a seed in rain. Wherever the spirit would go, they went. You never understood that verse. You thought it meant guidance, obedience. But now you see it's something else. It's embodiment. The spirit doesn't command from outside. It moves from within. The fire inside them is not for show. It's not aesthetic. It's indwelling. It is the will of heaven made visible, in movement. You reach for a metaphor. A shadow? No. Shadows are passive. A mirror? No. Mirrors only reflect. This is deeper. This is origin and echo breathing as one. They are not copies. They are not companions. They are expressions. The creature and the wheel are both vessels, both windows, both engines, through which something greater pours. And whatever it is, it knows you're watching. The fire doesn't burn your skin, but it unsettles your marrow. Your body stays still, but your spirit recoils, not in fear, but in recognition. You've seen glimpses of this before. In the silence before a prophet speaks. In the stillness, after the altar catches flame. In the ache that follows obedience. This is the Spirit of God, not hovering, not whispering, but driving, steering, animating, commanding. You thought the glory of God was a feeling, a warmth, a presence that came upon men in rare moments of grace. But now you see it moves. It has eyes, it has wheels, it has a will. And it rides the breath of the cherubim without reins or reinsmen. The creatures do not resist it. The wheels do not hesitate. Everything in this vision is submission, not subjugation, but delight. There is no tug of war between flesh and spirit, between mind and motion, only union. And you ache at how far your own life sits from that kind of harmony. You know now that the fire inside the wheels is not elemental. It's not physical. It's not judgment. It's the spirit. And the spirit does not drive the wheels like a hand drives a plow. It is the wheel. It is the flame. It is the knowing behind the movement. You fall to your knees again, not out of reverence, but because your legs no longer trust themselves to stand near something so alive. The creatures flash forward. The wheels answer. The sky cracks, but you don't look up. You watch the fire move, and you know God is in it. You didn't see it at first. You were too stunned by the wheels, too consumed by the creatures, too lost in the movement to look up. But then the light shifts, and you feel it. Not heat, not sound. Weight. A gravity that isn't physical, a presence that bends everything below it without touching it at all. Above the four living creatures, something vast, suspended, not by beams or stone or columns, but by something older than structure. It doesn't sit on anything. It simply is high and hovering, not wobbling, not drifting, fixed, held up not by supports, but by authority, as if the very air beneath it knows not to disobey. It's a throne. That's the only word your mind can find. But it's not made of wood or gold, not carved, not built. You can't trace the edges of it. It's like looking at sovereignty shaped into form. The base glows like sapphire, but not the kind you'd find in a crown. It pulses like glass holding lightning, like the sky cracked open and solidified. It doesn't glisten. It emanates. You feel its radiance more than you see it, like it knows the difference between being admired and being feared. You try to focus on the details, but the longer you stare, the more your vision bleeds at the edges, not from light, from revelation. This is not an object. It's a proclamation. It says something about God that words were never meant to carry. The creatures beneath it do not look up. The wings that hum against one another never rise high enough to touch it. They know their place. They do not approach. They do not reach. They uphold it not by lifting, but by alignment. Their presence affirms the throne without challenging its height. The fire between them stretches upward, a column of glory that does not consume, does not smoke, does not flicker. It burns clean. True. And it connects them to it not like a bridge, but like a verdict. You wonder if this throne has always hovered above the world, if it drifted over Sinai, if it loomed above the garden gates after the fall, if it sat in silence while prophets wept. You wonder if this is where justice was born, if this is the seat from which mercy was declared and wrath was measured. You wonder how close Moses got, how far Isaiah fell, how Ezekiel didn't die. You notice there are no steps leading to it, no procession, no path, because you don't climb to this throne. You don't approach it on your own terms. You're summoned, or you're undone. There is no middle. It floats, yes, but not like a feather, like a mountain in defiance of gravity, like law, unbothered by time. It doesn't move, but everything around it responds. The creatures, the wheels, the wind, as if they are listening to something you can't hear. You remember the tabernacle, the mercy seat, the cherubim crafted by human hands to mimic something no hand should dare replicate. And now you see the real thing, and it mocks every earthly copy, not because it's cruel, but because it cannot be domesticated. You try to breathe slowly, try not to tremble, but something inside you breaks open, not from fear, from truth. This is the center. This is the axis, the fixed point around which holiness turns. Not a symbol, not a metaphor, a throne, unshaken, untouched, and unapproachable. You are not looking at heaven's furniture. You are looking at the seat of God, and it floats, but because it is light, but because it is too heavy for the world to hold. You raise your eyes slowly, not because you're curious, but because something inside you commands it, the kind of compulsion that doesn't feel like choice. It feels like surrender. You don't know what you expect to see, a figure, a silhouette, a storm, but the moment your gaze reaches the throne, all expectation dies. There is someone sitting there, not a statue, not a force, a presence, a being, a person. But that word, person, it crumbles in your mouth. It's too small, too soft. This is not someone who exists. This is someone who is. You try to find the face, to anchor yourself in something human, but there is no face. Not because it is hidden, but because it is unseeable, not absent, too much, too pure. too dangerous. You feel your vision buckle beneath the weight of the glory. You squint, then look away, then look again. Each time your eyes adjust, something deeper eludes you. It's like trying to stare into the sun and understand what's behind it. From the waist up, fire. Pure, living flame. Not orange, not yellow, not the kind that licks at wood or dances in a hearth. This fire doesn't flicker. It burns, constant, heavy, not consuming, announcing. It pulses like a heartbeat from eternity. You see no skin, no robe, no adornment. Just flame, thick and sovereign, rising into the heavens like a question that can't be answered. From the waist down, the same. Fire, matching fire, echoing fire. Like the top half and bottom half are mirror and origin. You can't tell where the fire ends and the light begins. They blend, indistinguishable, endless. It isn't decorative. It's not a sign of emotion. It's his nature. You realize then that holiness doesn't glow. Holiness burns. Around him is something like radiance, not just light, presence. A glowing storm that doesn't rage but reigns. You see a brightness like metal, refined in a furnace. You see the shimmer of water bending under heat. You see brilliance so dense it silences the air. You don't know what holds it together. Maybe nothing does. Maybe he simply chooses not to let it escape. You feel small. Not the kind of small that makes you feel weak. The kind that makes you feel known. Measured. Held against something infinite. You've been in the presence of kings. You've seen judges draped in cloth and tradition. You've heard prophets cry out with trembling lips. But this is different. This is not authority given. This is authority embodied. You can't measure his size. He doesn't stretch upward. He is upward. There's no edge to his being, no corner of him that isn't wrapped in fire and mystery. You know in your bones. This is not a symbol. This is not a vision dressed up in metaphor. You are seeing God sit. You fall without choosing to. Knees first, hands next. Your forehead touches the dust. Your lips go numb. You can't remember the last word you spoke. You can't remember your name. All you can remember is the sound of your own breath shaking in your chest. And the fire. The fire above you, around you, inside you. He does not speak. Not yet. But the silence feels full. Like every second holds a command. Like every flicker of his presence writes a new law across the bones of the universe. You want to cry, but the tears feel unworthy. You want to worship, but your voice feels fraudulent. So you stay face down, still, undone. There is someone sitting on the throne. You cannot explain him. You cannot describe him. You cannot survive him. And somehow, you are still alive. It begins with a tremor in the sky. Not thunder, not wind, but weight. The atmosphere folds around it. The fire flares brighter. The wings below fall silent. Even the wheels pause their endless turning. And then, he speaks. You don't hear it with your ears. Not at first. You feel it. In your ribs, in the soles of your feet, in the marrow of your spine. It doesn't pass through air. It moves through substance, through you. You try to breathe, but your lungs refuse. Not out of fear, out of reverence, as if they know they were made by this sound. It's not a language you recognize. Not Hebrew, not Babylonian, not the tongue of angels or men, but your bones understand it. Your soul leans forward, not to decode, but to submit. This voice does not ask for understanding. It commands surrender. It sounds like water, but not the gentle kind. Not rain, not rivers, oceans, depths. The sound of the deep breaking open, of salt and pressure, and currents older than history. And beneath that, something sharper, like iron dragged across stone, like shields colliding, like mountains grinding together under the hand of God. It is the voice of creation and war, of peace declared by power, of judgment wrapped in flame. You press your face into the dust, trying to disappear, but you can't. He is not speaking around you, he is speaking to you, and the words, whatever they are, find every locked door inside you and throw them open. It's not loud, it's not soft, it's everything. You cannot measure the decibel because your ears are ringing with something holier than sound. Your heartbeat stumbles trying to keep pace with it. Your skin feels too thin. Your name, whatever it was, is now a thread fraying in the wake of this voice. You think about Sinai, about smoke and tablets, and a mountain wrapped in dread. You remember how the people begged Moses to go up alone because they couldn't bear to hear God for themselves. And now you understand. They weren't being dramatic, they were being honest. Because when God speaks, the soul remembers what silence never could. You don't know how long he talks. Time becomes irrelevant. The syllables pour out like waves, endless and alive, crashing into who you were and washing it away. He's not just telling you something, he is undoing you. Every sentence feels like a sword, every pause a mercy. You are being read, not addressed. He is reciting your life with his breath, and you are powerless to hide. At one point, the voice lifts Endar, not in volume, but in altitude. It stretches beyond what should be possible. It opens something in the heavens you didn't know could open. And for a moment, you feel as if you are hearing what the stars have been hearing since the first light broke across the void. He speaks, and cherubim don't move. They just listen. The wheels do not spin. The fire does not rage. Everything bows, not with posture, but with stillness. You think you might die, but not in fear, in fulfillment. Because what else can flesh do in the presence of the voice that made it? You do not answer. You cannot. There is no room for dialogue. This is not a conversation. This is a declaration. You are not participating. You are receiving. He speaks of glory, of exile, of holiness and betrayal, of nations that rise and fall under the weight of his will, and somehow, woven through the fury and the flame, is mercy, not soft, not fragile, but absolute, the kind that crushes idols and raises the dead. Then, just as suddenly, the voice ceases, the fire steadies, the creatures stir again, the wheels begin to turn, and you, still on your face, still trembling, realize something terrifying. He wasn't shouting, he was whispering. And still, it felt like the end of the world. You don't see him move, you feel it. Before it happens, the air tightens, the creatures tense, the wheels hum with anticipation. The fire shifts its rhythm. Not wilder, just clearer, like a drummer lifting the stick before the first strike. And then, without sound, without signal, without ceremony, he moves. It's not a gesture, it's not a step, it's an act of will that unbalances the world. The throne tilts forward slightly, not like a seat being leaned, but like a storm bowing before release. That's all it takes. The moment he moves, heaven answers. The four living creatures lurch into motion, each one flashing forward like they've been waiting an eternity for this single command. They do not hesitate. They do not decide. They respond. Their wings beat without delay, stretching toward one another in perfect unity. There's no chaos in their coordination, no drift, no recalibration. Each body moves like a sentence, mid-breath, seamless, inevitable. The wheels erupt into motion with them. They do not roll like carts. They do not drag like burdens. They ignite, spinning in all directions without friction, without effort. Not like they're being pulled, but like the desire of the one above them is now pulsing through every ring. They move not to keep up, but but because they are part of him. You realize then, this is not choreography. This is a body. The throne doesn't need reins, doesn't need signals or speech. Every part of it, the fire, the wings, the wheels, obeys the moment will is released. It's not communication. It's connection. You try to find the logic, the link, the mechanism, but there is none. This is not a system. This is glory in motion. The movement itself is terrifying, not because it threatens you, but because it exposes everything that isn't holy. You feel the ground quake beneath you, not just shake, twake. As if the earth is remembering it is not the center. Dust leaps from the ground. The bones of the city beyond the river seem to rattle in their sockets. The sky doesn't darken, but it feels dim compared to the weight of what passes through it. There is no confusion, no scrambling, no second guessing. Heaven doesn't stop to ask questions. It knows. It responds with the precision of lightning, with the swiftness of breath between words. You've seen kings try to command an army. You've seen generals bark orders into chaos. But this is not command. This is possession. Everything in this vision is possessed by the will of the one seated above. And that will is moving. You realize, with a kind of terror that tastes like awe, that there is no delay between God's desire and heaven's response. Not a second, not a blink, not a breath. When he moves, they move. When he halts, they hover. The fire does not ripple unless he allows it. The wind does not stir without permission. The cherubim do not flinch. The wheels do not spin unless glory leans forward. And in that realization, something inside you fractures. You think of your own obedience, the stalling, the questions, the conditions. You think of how many times you've waited for confirmation, how many times you've required signs, how many times you've said, I will, but not yet. And now, in the face of creatures who flash forward like thunder wrapped in eyes and fire, you see what real obedience looks like. It looks like motion without explanation. It looks like response without resistance. It looks like lightning disguised as wings and wheels. He moves again, just slightly, a pulse of divine thought you can't track. The creatures pivot mid-air, not turning, just reorienting, just aligning. The wheels shift direction without changing course. The fire adjusts, and the whole structure, throne, spirit, flame, and fury, continues across the sky, like a storm that obeys no season. You fall again, not because you're afraid, but because the ground has started to tremble beneath your hands. When heaven moves, earth remembers it was made of dust. You don't expect him to leave. After everything you've seen, the fire, the thunder, the eyes, the voice, you thought he would stay. Not just here, but there, in the temple, in the place that was built to hold him, the place that bore his name. But then he moves, and this time, he doesn't circle, he rises. The cherubim follow, not like guards, not like servants, like limbs. The wheels spin without resistance. The flame pulses upward. There is no rush, no chaos, just a slow, deliberate ascent. You don't see his face, you still can't, but you feel the decision. It presses into the air like judgment wrapped in grief. You want to cry out, to beg him not to go, but you don't, because something deeper than your voice tells you this isn't sudden. This has been coming. The departure began long before this moment, before the river, before the wheels, before you were ever called to see it. You watch as the throne lifts above the cherubim, not fleeing, not abandoning, just withdrawing, like a king stepping down from a courtroom no longer fit for justice. Like light pulling itself away from shadows that refuse to repent. He does not speak. He does not roar. But the silence he leaves behind is louder than war. The creatures carry him slowly across the sky, over the city, over the rooftops, over the stone courtyards, where the priests still pretend they're being watched. You see the smoke rising from the altar. You see the rituals continuing, the motions performed. But the fire they offer isn't met with flame. The glory doesn't descend. It rises. You feel it even from this side of the river. A coldness, not in the air, but in the bones of the city. As if Jerusalem just lost its heartbeat. The temple is still standing, but it's empty now. Not because the gold is gone, not because the priests are silent, because he is. You remember the stories. Solomon's prayer, the cloud that filled the inner courts, the weight of glory so thick the priests couldn't stand. You remember how the temple was once too full of holiness for men to enter. Now it's too hollow to be holy. You grip the ground, not because you're falling, but because the earth feels unworthy to hold him. He isn't retreating, he isn't lost. He's leaving because he was pushed. Not with force, with forgetfulness, with idolatry, with hearts that honored the rituals, but forgot the presence. And now the presence is moving on. You watch him cross the threshold of the temple, not in the doorways, but above them. Past the walls, past the gates, past the veil that no longer veils anything sacred. He moves through the sky like judgment robed in light. You want someone to notice. You want someone to scream, to stop, but they don't. The city goes on. The bells still ring. The sacrifices are still prepared, but you know, you feel it. He's gone. Not forever, but for now. And what remains is absence. Not emptiness, absence, the kind that aches, the kind that lingers like smoke after fire, the kind that makes the soul wonder if it ever deserved to be near him in the first place. The throne reaches the edge of the mountain, the cherubims slow, the wheels dim slightly, like a lamp covered, not extinguished, and he waits, not to be begged, not to be welcomed back, just to be noticed. You lower your head into your hands. You don't speak. You mourn. Not because judgment has come, but because glory has left. You rise to your feet too soon. You tell yourself it's time, that the vision has passed, that the wheels have lifted, the throne has withdrawn, and now, maybe you can breathe. Maybe you can stand in your own body again without trembling. You wipe your palms against your robe, your knees still raw from the gravel. You tell yourself it's over. And then the air shifts. Not like wind, not like weather, like pressure. Invisible and absolute. It thickens around you, as if something unseen has exhaled across the bones of the earth. You feel it crawl across your skin, through your ribs, down into your spine. It does not hurt. It hums. The breath in your lungs suddenly feels borrowed. Your balance falters. Your heartbeat lags. Not from sickness, from proximity. Something holy is still here. You try to steady yourself. You whisper a prayer. But your words come out broken. Not because your mouth is weak, but because language can't carry what your soul now knows. The glory may have lifted, but the residue remains. The echo of his presence still vibrates in the soil. It coats your hands. It hangs on your shoulders like a cloak stitched from thunder and ash. You try to speak again, but the moment your lips part, you fall. Not from fear, not from pain, from weight. It's not the kind of weight that crushes. It doesn't shatter your bones or silence your breath. It's deeper than that, heavier. It's the weight of knowing, of having seen too much and realizing you were never meant to hold it. The kind of holiness that doesn't need to strike you down to leave you prostrate. You hit the earth with your whole body, forehead in the dust, arms outstretched, not to shield yourself, but to surrender, to give in to the collapse you can't resist anymore. Your strength was never enough. You realize that now. Every part of you presses low, not in terror, but in awe. You're not shaking because you're afraid. You're shaking because your soul is trying to keep itself from splitting open. You can still see it in your mind. The fire, the throne, the eyes, the voice. The imprint is branded into your spirit, like a name burned into stone. You feel bruised, but not broken. The kind of bruising that holiness leaves behind, not as punishment, but as proof. You were here. You saw. You survived. And now your body carries the memory like a scar without a wound. The dust beneath your cheek is warm. You can feel your own breath bouncing back off the ground, shallow and uneven. There is no voice now, no movement in the heavens, but the silence itself is loud, holy. You stay there, not out of duty, but because it's the only posture that feels honest. You remember others who fell. Isaiah, who cried, "Woe is me." Daniel, who said his strength left him. John, who collapsed like a dead man. You are not stronger than them. You were never meant to be. You lie there longer than you know, long enough for your heartbeat to find its rhythm again, long enough to remember your name, long enough for the awe to stop burning and start soaking into your bones. When you finally lift your head, you do not feel worthy. You feel changed, not healed, not empowered, just opened, like your chest has been cracked wide and heaven poured something into the hollow that used to hold pride. You thought you could stand in the presence of God. You were wrong. But the fall was grace. You are still on your face when the command comes. Not a thunderclap, not a whisper, just a knowing, pressing into your bones with the weight of a voice that's older than time. It doesn't ask, it doesn't plead, it tells. And somehow, your body obeys before your mind understands. Open your mouth. Your lips part, dry, trembling. You expect fire, maybe ash, maybe silence. But instead, something is placed there, gently, deliberately. A scroll, not made of paper or skin, not bound with ink or thread. It is written, but not with human language. The text glows faintly, carved into it like breath frozen in light. You do not recognize the script, but it recognizes you. Every letter curls with the weight of meaning, not metaphor, but command. You feel the words before you taste them, and then you chew. The scroll is not symbolic. It is not allegory. It is substance. It presses against your teeth like fruit dried in sunlight and dipped in steel. It is soft and heavy and alive. The taste floods your mouth before you even swallow. Bitter and sweet, holy and heavy. Judgment. That's the first flavor. Not anger, not punishment, but truth, exposed and raw, like biting into iron and realizing it's your reflection inside. You taste nations toppling. You taste temples abandoned. You taste rebellion sung like lullabies in sanctuaries. The bitterness grips your throat, not to choke you, but to remind you that holiness is not always gentle. Then comes mercy, not as an afterthought, as a current beneath the sorrow. It rolls across your tongue like honey that stings, sweet, but only because you were expecting poison. Sweet, because it doesn't leave you in the bitterness. You taste forgiveness you didn't earn, restoration no one deserves. You chew, and with every bite, the scroll dissolves into your bones. You wonder how long it will last in you. You wonder if it will burn later or bloom. But for now, it sits in your gut like a second heart. You feel the words moving inside you, not like memory, but like fire learning your name. You know, without anyone telling you, that you will never speak the same again. The scroll is not knowledge. It is commission. You do not get to choose what it says. You only get to carry it. And the next time your mouth opens, it will not be your words that come out. It will be his, laced with warning, dripping with grace. And neither will be optional. You blink. The vision hasn't faded, but something in you has changed. You do not feel full. You feel marked. He does not praise you for swallowing it. He does not explain why it had to be eaten. But you understand now. Revelation is not just to be seen, it's to be consumed. It must sit inside you. Change your breath. Reshape your voice. You are no longer just a witness. You are a vessel. And the scroll has claimed your mouth. The temple rises in the distance, like a memory someone forgot to keep holy. Its walls are clean, its priests are robed, the incense still burns in even lines that snake toward the heavens, but something is missing. You feel it before you even cross the courtyard. A hollow in the air, like a song sung without breath. They say the rituals continue, that the blood flows, that the prayers rise. But when you stand in the outer courts and watch them, all you see is motion, not worship. The priests move like dancers, locked in a routine they no longer believe in. Hands lift bowls, fingers scatter ashes, lips mutter words from Moses and David, words too sacred to be said without weight. But the words fall flat now. Not because they've changed, but because the room has, because the fire left, because the glory walked out. You feel the absence the way a child feels cold in the place where a mother's arms used to be. You grip your own forearm, not because you're cold, but because you need to feel something still holding. They don't speak of it, not out loud, but you can see it in the way the high priest hesitates before entering the inner room, in the way he glances at the curtain, as if it might move, in the way he doesn't meet your eyes. He knows. They all do. The ark still rests behind the veil. The altar is still hot with coals, but heaven has withdrawn its gaze, and they keep pretending it hasn't. They light the fire every morning. They slit the lambs at twilight, but they don't look up when they pray. They don't wait for the cloud. They don't tremble. You press your back to the stone column and watch one of them pour oil across the head of a calf. His movements are perfect, too perfect. Like muscle memory, reciting what the soul forgot. He doesn't blink. He doesn't pause. When he lifts his hands, you see the tremor. Not from awe, but exhaustion. His mouth forms the words, but his eyes wander. You follow his gaze, past the smoke, past the veil, past the sky, searching for a glory that once answered with fire. Now there is only the weight of silence, and the echo of their own performance. They have turned holiness into habit. They speak his name without flinching. They lift sacrifices with steady hands, but not one of them weeps. Not one of them tears their robe. Not one of them remembers the thunder on Sinai, or the blaze that fell when Solomon prayed. They act like the fire still listens, like the cloud still lingers, but their hearts are elsewhere. You can feel it. They keep glancing toward the gates, as if something better might be coming, as if Babylon has more to offer than the presence they've forgotten how to miss. You want to scream. You want to shout that he was here, that you saw him, that he still burns with eyes like molten metal and speaks with a voice that can undo cities, but they wouldn't understand. Not now. Not like this. Their robes are clean, but their hearts are rusted. You feel the words clawing up your throat, but you swallow them like ash. They wouldn't hear you. They would call you mad. They would say, the sacrifices are still accepted. The priesthood still stands. But you know better. The fire does not linger where it is not welcomed. And it has gone. You see the elders in the outer courts, speaking in soft tones, quoting scrolls with honeyed ease. One of them smiles as he corrects another. Their laughter feels wrong. Not because laughter is forbidden, but because they have forgotten they stand on holy ground. They speak of God like an idea, not a person, not a presence, not a flame that once cracked stone and whispered across the mercy seat. You wonder how long it took them to stop looking toward the throne, how many days of silence they endured before they stopped expecting his voice, how long before they said, "It is enough to remember him, even if he never returns." And still they offer. Still they chant. Still they bless and break and sprinkle. But their eyes do not shine. Their knees do not bend from reverence. only from age. You look at the smoke rising above the altar and wonder if it reaches heaven or just vanishes into the wind. You remember the weight of the vision, the blaze of the cherubim, the roar of the wheels. And you wonder how anyone could move through this temple and not collapse under the memory of that glory. You try to pray, but the words choke in your throat. You feel grief like a tide rising behind your ribs, not just for them, but for yourself, because you remember what it felt like to forget. You remember the days you prayed by the river, wondering if he still listened. You remember the fear that maybe he had moved on, and now you see it, not just in your own story, but in theirs. The priests have not abandoned the temple, but they have abandoned the presence. And the tragedy is, they do not even know it. It begins in the silence after prayer, not the kind where you wait for an answer, the kind where your questions fall asleep in your mouth. You don't hear a voice, not at first, just stillness, then something like pressure, not outside, not above, but inside your breath. You freeze, not in fear, but recognition. The way a shepherd freezes when the wind shifts in the hills and he knows he's not alone. You hold your chest like the sound is coming from beneath your ribs, like it's moving through your lungs on borrowed wind. No words, just wait. It doesn't speak like the prophets, not with thunder, not with rebuke. It speaks like fire speaks when no one's watching. Low, constant, holy. The sound isn't sound at all. It's like memory and command woven together. And you don't hear it with your ears. You feel it. The same way you feel hunger, or the moment right before tears rise. You close your eyes, thinking maybe it's just the echo of your own thoughts. But it isn't. Your thoughts don't burn. Your thoughts don't make your bones feel like scripture. The first time it happens, you try to speak. You try to say, "What do you want?" But your voice betrays you, not because you're afraid, but because the question already feels answered. The presence doesn't need to ask. It doesn't need to explain. It just is. And somehow, without words, you understand. This is not meant for crowds, for temples, for kings. This is not a proclamation. This is a whisper meant only for those who've been broken quiet enough to hear it. The angels do not shout. They do not need to. When heaven wants to shake the earth, it roars. But when it wants to change a soul, it whispers. And the whisper doesn't sound like comfort. It sounds like fire being folded, like wings moving through ash, like something ancient remembering itself through you. The words are never exact. They don't translate cleanly, but their shape lives inside your chest now. They move through you when you sleep. They press behind your eyelids when you close your eyes. You wake with phrases on your lips that no one taught you. You do not tell the others, not because you doubt, but because you know they won't understand. Because this is not a message for a crowd. It's not even a message for you. Not really. It's a message moving through you. It's for the world, but the world isn't ready. And so the angels whisper to those who will carry it until it is. Sometimes it comes when you walk by the river. Sometimes when you lie in bed with the covers pulled over your head and the darkness presses too close. Sometimes it comes with thunder outside. Other times with nothing but wind and your own heartbeat. They do not speak in full sentences. They do not explain doctrine. They do not repeat the law. They whisper truths that feel older than language. And when they speak, you do not question. You weep. Not because of sorrow, not even because of joy. You weep because something in you remembers the sound, as if you've been waiting your whole life to hear it again. And now it's here, not in a temple, not in a scroll, inside you. You ask yourself why they whisper, why heaven would choose to speak this way. But you already know, because truth is too heavy to shout, because the weight of glory would break you if it came all at once, because love like this arrives gently, So you keep listening. You listen when no one else is speaking. You listen in the pauses between prayers. You listen to your own breath and wonder if it's yours anymore. Sometimes the whisper sounds like your name. Sometimes it sounds like we, as if more than one voice is speaking, as if heaven itself is remembering you. You try to write it down, but the words never hold. They disappear on paper. They only live inside breath and silence. You stop trying to translate. You start trying to obey, because that's what the whisper is. Not information, invitation. Not theology, communion, not command, alignment. The more you listen, the more you realize they've always been speaking. You just hadn't slowed down long enough to notice. They whispered in the thunder, in the fire, in the exile, in the temple. But now they speak in you, not because you're worthy, but because you're empty, and they fill what's empty. You do not need to hear them to believe, but you believe because you hear them. And when they stop, you don't panic. You wait. Because now you know, heaven speaks softest when the world is loudest. And the holiest messages are the ones that leave no sound at all, only fire and breath, and the ache of knowing you've been spoken to by something that doesn't need to speak to be obeyed. It comes not in a vision, but in something quieter, stranger, a flash behind your eyes while you pray, a shimmer that doesn't vanish when you blink. You see a gate, not made of stone or bronze or any metal the world remembers. A gate made of presence, a gate that hums with memory. It does not open. It does not need to. You recognize it, though you've never seen it. The garden, the first one, the one the world lost before it learned to speak shame. Eden, veiled from the east, glowing with the heat of something never meant to fade. You want to approach, but you already know. You can't. The air is thick near the edge, not with smoke, but with holiness. Your breath shallows, not from fear, but from awe, the kind that makes your hands forget how to move. There is no sound of birdsong, no laughter in the trees, no wind, just stillness. And in that stillness, the burning, two of them, living creatures, not illusions, not memories, not remnants, cherubim, the same ones. You do not doubt it. Their form is impossible, their presence unbearable. They do not age, they do not move, yet they are never still. Their wings crackle without sound. Their faces shimmer between lion and eagle, and man and ox, and you feel all of them looking at you, even when they don't turn. Their swords do not hang at their sides. They hang in the air, bright and spinning, not held by hands, but by will. Blades of flame that do not consume what they guard, but dare anything else to try. You understand without words that nothing has crossed since the day man was driven out. The garden is not overgrown. It is untouched, untouchable. Time has not passed here. The grass still glows with dew. The world has forgotten. The fruit still breathes in sunlight no longer found on earth. And the tree in the center, the one they were banished to protect, still stands, still alive, still forbidden. You do not ask questions. You do not speak. Language feels too small here, too fragile. You simply stand and behold. You wonder how long they have stood like this, flaming and alert. You wonder if they ever rest, if the command ever lessens, if the fire ever softens. But then you remember what the fire is. Glory. Not wrath, not punishment. Glory. That's what they're made of. That's what keeps the sword burning. That's what keeps the gate shut. You feel the ache of something deep inside you. Not nostalgia, not even grief, but a kind of homesickness for a place your blood remembers, even if your mind does not. This is where it all began, where dust was first shaped into soul, where breath became man, where we walked with God and didn't flinch. You look at the gate and you realize this is not a myth. not a metaphor. It's still here. The exile never erased it. It just made us forget how to see. The cherubim do not speak to you. They do not threaten you. They do not need to. Their presence is enough. Their stillness is louder than thunder. They burn because he told them to burn. They guard because he told them to guard. Not until the end of time. Not until someone says otherwise. But until holiness decides what comes next. You try to look away, but their form is carved into your vision now. When you close your eyes, you still see them. Wings layered in flame, faces shifting like turning seasons. Feet that do not touch earth but carry the weight of it. You remember the temple, the ark, the mercy seat. You remember the carvings of cherubim embroidered into the curtain, sculpted over the lid of God's dwelling. You thought they were symbols. You thought they were art. But now you know they are reminders. Echoes of this moment, of this gate, of this unbroken command. Do not enter. Not yet. Not like this. You step back, not because you are afraid, but because you are not ready. No one is. The sword still spins. The fire still guards. The garden is still behind the veil. And the cherubim, they still burn. Still holy. Still waiting. You thought the fire ended with the cherubim. You were wrong. Higher still, past the thunder of wings and the echo of wheels, past the shining firmament that holds the throne aloft, there is another fire. You don't see them at first. The glory of the throne is too much, too bright. But once your eyes adjust to the terror of the lower glory, you begin to notice movement in the upper light. Not like creatures, not like soldiers. Like flame itself had been given purpose. You squint, not to bring them closer, but to keep from being undone by the brightness. And then you see them. Seraphim. Not beasts, not messengers, not like anything else you've seen. They don't shimmer like the cherubim. They blaze. And yet they do not burn out. 6 wings, each. 2 stretch high above their heads, brushing glory that has no ceiling. 2 stretch downward, folding over feet that never touch the throne yet never leave it. And the last 2, always moving, always hovering. Do they fly? Not like birds, but like ideas, too holy to remain still. They do not drift. They do not falter. They hold position with a steadiness that makes the stars look unsure. They move with purpose, but not urgency. They are not watching for intruders. They are not guarding a gate. They are worship. They do not speak to you. They don't even look at you. If they know you're here, they give no sign. Their attention is elsewhere, fixed, eternal, and that, somehow, is worse. You have stood before fire. You have heard thunder speak. But this silence toward you, this devotion that does not even blink at your presence, it breaks something in you. You feel your smallness, not your sin, not yet, just your size. You are not the center. You are not even in the frame. The throne is their horizon, and what they see there, you can't imagine. They cry out, not in chaos, not in clamor, but in perfect rhythm. Not like a song, like breath, like law, like gravity. Holy, holy, holy. The word shatters and reshapes the air. It isn't a title. It isn't praise. It's truth. The kind that doesn't need agreement to be real. They are not explaining him. They are proclaiming what simply is. And they do not stop. They cannot stop. The sound rolls like tide and thunder and wind all wrapped in fire. But the fire isn't coming from them. They are the fire. And yet, even they cannot bear to look. With 2 wings they cover their faces. Not from fear, not from shame, but because even flame must veil itself before that kind of glory. You wonder what they see, what they've seen, how long they've hovered in that brightness, repeating the same word not out of command, but conviction. You wonder if they remember anything else, or if holiness itself is enough. They do not tire. They do not age. They do not blink. They do not glance away to admire the firmament or the wheels or the other angels, because nothing else matters, not to them, not when the throne still burns. Holy, holy, holy. You feel the words crawl under your skin, not as comfort, not as peace, as weight, as judgment and mercy braided into one sound. The air between you and the throne vibrates with the force of it. You try to cover your ears, but your ears are not the part that hears. Your ribs know. Your soul knows. The word finds the parts of you that still thought God was manageable, containable, describable, and it crushes them. The seraphim do not stop to see if their worship is effective. They do not pause to be seen. They are not performing. They are becoming. And in their becoming, you are undone. Because if the burning ones must cover their eyes, what does that mean for you? If they can only say one thing, how much more should you? You fall to your knees, not because anyone told you to, because the only proper response to holiness is surrender. The throne remains, the fire does not dim, and the burning ones still cry out, holy, not to you, not for you, just because it is true, and it always will be. You ask the question because it won't leave you alone. It haunts the silence between visions, echoes in your bones when the angels pass. You've seen them, the ones wrapped in wings and flame, the ones who cry out holy without ever turning their gaze. They hover near the throne, brighter than any fire you've known, voices like storm wind and rushing water, and yet they cover their faces. Not once, not sometimes, always. With 2 wings, they veil their eyes. With 2 more, they cover their feet. And with the last, they fly, trembling. You don't understand it at first, not after everything you've seen. These are not weak beings. They are not frightened messengers. They are not children. They are the closest to the throne. They live in the very gravity of glory, and still, they shield themselves. You watched one tilt his head slightly, and the movement alone made the air bend around you like cloth drawn tight over a flame. The light that cracked from him scorched the edges of your sight. You blinked, and still saw fire. Not because he meant to blind you, because he couldn't help it. His presence was made of flame. And yet, even he does not look. You asked once, not with your mouth, but with your silence. You asked in the way your eyes held too long on the veil of his wings. You asked in the pause before you bowed. And the answer didn't come in words. It came in weight. A holy hush that settled over you like snowfall that burns instead of cools. You understood it without being told. The answer is simple. Even they are unworthy. You thought angels were the standard, that their holiness was the goal, that if you could just become like them, you could understand heaven. But now you see it. They are not the goal. They are the warning. They show you what holiness does to everything, even to those created from it. They have never sinned, never doubted, never broken covenant, and still they cannot bear to lift their eyes. Because holiness isn't something you climb toward. It's something that undoes everything near it, even the innocent. Their wings do not hide shame. They hide reverence. They do not tremble from fear of punishment. They tremble from the pressure of proximity. The same way a mountain groans beneath the weight of snow, it was always meant to carry. They are not hiding. They are honoring, because they know what you forget. That to see the fullness of the one who sits on the throne is to unravel. That no creature, not even one born of light, can look and survive. They cover their eyes not because they are blind, but because they see too much. And their feet, the ones that never touch earth, the ones that hover in the highest heavens, even those are hidden. Not because they are unclean, but because they know. They know what dust was given breath and called man. They know the ground they hover above once bore the image of God. And in that knowledge, they cover themselves, not in shame, in awe. You thought worship was noise, that glory meant spectacle. But here, in the hush between the cries of holy, you learn the truth. Worship begins in hiding. Reverence begins in trembling. The greatest praise is not the loudest voice. It's the covered face, the bowed head, the silent awe that says, I am not worthy to look, but I will not look away. So now, when you see their wings flutter, when you hear their voices shake mid-cry, you do not wonder why. You know, it is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the fire of knowing your place and still choosing to stay near. The angels do not cover themselves because God told them to. They cover themselves because they remember who He is and who they are not. You see Him and everything inside you forgets how to breathe. It is not a dream. It is not a symbol. This is not poetry or prophecy. He is real. He stands where heaven meets judgment. Not beside the throne, not among the seraphim, but in a place more narrow, more terrible. You recognize it even before your mind catches up. This is the boundary. This is the threshold between holy and not. And He stands at the center of it with flame in His grip. The sword He holds is not made of metal. It is not hammered or sharpened. It is not held. It hovers. It spins slowly, steadily, alive with a fire that burns without sound. And yet the silence around it is deafening. You can't describe its color. You can't name its shape. It shifts with every glance, every breath, like a thought sharpened into light. You try to look directly at it, and something in your chest folds inward, not from fear, but from recognition. You are seen, fully, entirely, and you cannot hide. His face is not fierce. It is not cruel, but it does not move. He does not blink. His gaze is steady, like one who has been watching for a very long time and has never grown tired. He sees through you without effort, like the difference between water and air, soul and spirit. Your thoughts unravel under His eyes, your memories open like scrolls. The things you meant to forget, the things you never said, the reasons you gave yourself, they all hang in the air now, bare and blinking. He doesn't speak. He doesn't have to. You want to fall. You want to close your eyes, but even your eyelids feel transparent. There is no hiding here, no pretending, not in front of Him. He does not condemn. He discerns. And that is worse, because His gaze doesn't just find your sin, it finds your motive. It separates every thread of why, every half prayer, every crooked intention hiding beneath good deeds. You see yourself the way He sees you. And you are not ready. He is not like the other angels. He does not sing. He does not guard the throne. He does not cry out, holy. He is the dividing line. He is what stands between exile and return, between mercy and presumption, between what was promised and what is permitted. You remember Eden. You remember the gate. And now you see the one who stood there. Not once. Still. His sword didn't dim. It wasn't lowered. He did not leave. He looks at you like someone weighing more than your past. He's weighing your path, not what you've done, but where you're going. And His eyes ask a question your mouth cannot answer. Will you cross? Not can you. Will you? Because there's a cost. There always is. The sword is not just for defense. It purifies. It severs. And nothing that walks past it comes through unchanged. You want to look away, but you don't, because part of you is drawn not to Him, but to what's behind Him. You sense something beyond the flame, a garden, a promise, a presence. And the only way is through Him, through that fire, through that gaze, through the blade that cuts not flesh, but soul. Still, He does not move. Still, He watches. And you understand, this angel is not a warning. He is an invitation, but only if you're willing to let yourself be split open, undone, remade. not in comfort, in truth. Because that sword was never meant to kill you. It was meant to reveal you. He lifts the blade just slightly, and for a moment, you glimpse your own reflection in it. Not your face, but your future. And it burns. But beneath the burning, there is something else. Not fear, not shame, hope. Because the one who holds the sword is not your enemy. He is the guardian of the way back, and he does not blink. You try to eat. You try to sit at the same table, in the same chair, with the same bread in your hands, but your fingers won't stop shaking. The food tastes like dust. The wine is too sweet. You chew out of habit, not hunger, and halfway through the meal you forget what you're chewing for. You wipe your mouth with the corner of your sleeve like always, but something about the gesture feels foreign now, like you're imitating someone else's routine. You used to do this without thinking. Now every motion feels too loud, too slow, too false. The silence in the room isn't peace anymore, it's distance. You lie down in your bed and stare at the ceiling, hoping sleep might come if you pretend hard enough. You fold your hands the way you used to when you were a child, when prayer felt like safety, but no words come. You close your eyes and try to breathe in rhythm, counting the seconds between each breath, like maybe the math will carry you to rest. But the darkness isn't soft anymore. It's sharp. Every corner of the room presses in like a question you don't know how to answer. And when your eyes finally close, you don't dream. You fall into something else, but a silence too full to be rest. You wake with a jolt and realize the morning hasn't arrived. You've only drifted, not slept. Your body is tired, but your soul is alert, not anxious, just awake, like it's waiting for something, like it knows the veil between worlds is too thin now for sleep to last. You rise and step outside, hoping the wind might shake it loose, whatever it is. The sky is still dark, but even the stars feel different now, like they're watching, like they've seen what you saw and know you can't unknow it. You wrap yourself in your cloak and sit on the steps and try to listen for normal. But all you hear is a quiet that knows too much. You try to talk about it. You start sentences and stop halfway through. You describe what you saw and watch their eyes glaze over. They nod. They smile. They call it beautiful. They call it strange. But none of them understand the weight. None of them saw the creatures burn without smoke. None of them felt the fire in their lungs or the silence in their bones. They say things like, "What a vision," or "What a gift," and go back to lighting lamps and folding cloth and laughing at things that feel too small now. You nod along. You pretend. But inside, you are screaming. Because everything is thinner now. The world feels stretched, like paper pulled tight over something burning. You can still see the streets. You can still touch the walls. But you know none of it is permanent. You know there's more just beyond the edge. Something older. Something louder. Something that never sleeps. You walk through the market and feel it in the space between footsteps. You hear it in the wind. You see it in the faces of strangers who still think Earth is the only thing that matters. And you want to shake them. You want to scream, "Heaven is watching," but your voice stays trapped behind your teeth. You try to return to the rhythm, to prayers at dawn, to verses over breakfast, to psalms recited in evening light, but none of it lands the way it used to. The words are still true, but now they feel like doors instead of answers, invitations instead of conclusions, and part of you aches for when they were enough, when the temple was a building, not a presence, when angels were stories, not witnesses, when fire was for warmth, not for holiness. You miss the illusion of safety. You miss the comfort of not knowing. But you can't go back. You've seen too much. You've heard what the angels whisper. You've watched the glory rise and depart. You've felt the breath of heaven on your skin, and now the veil doesn't close like it used to. The edge is always near, and normal is gone. Not because it was taken, but because it was never real. Not fully. Not compared to this. You walk the streets like a stranger in your own life. You speak with a voice that doesn't quite sound like yours. You eat, you sleep, you move, but something in you has shifted. Something in you is still burning, and it won't stop, because once you've touched the holy, everything ordinary becomes a question, and nothing familiar feels safe again. You were warned, not with words but with weight. From the moment the air shifted, from the moment the sky began to split, and the fire peeled back the edge of the world, you knew. Something holy was coming, and you were not ready. You tried to be. You tried to steady your breath, to steady your hands, to remember the names of prophets who saw glimpses and lived to tell. But the moment the glory arrived, every name fell from your mouth. Every word you rehearsed turned to ash on your tongue. You told yourself this was a vision. You told yourself this was a gift. But now, as your knees dig into the ground and your ribs tremble with the weight of something you can't carry, you understand. You were not meant to see this. Not with mortal eyes, not with this frail frame of dust and breath. Heaven is not soft. It is not the gentle glow painted in temples or the quiet peace you whisper over children's beds. It is not gold streets or cloud palaces or white robes clean from the press of war. Heaven is violence and wonder braided into flame. Heaven is the crack of thunder that never stops echoing. Heaven is the weight of God when he decides to reveal himself, and the moment he does, nothing, not even your own name, can stand. You thought holiness would feel like warmth. You thought the throne would shine like morning. But when the glory appears, it is like watching a storm. Remember, it is alive, light too pure to name, fire without smoke, presence that does not ask permission before entering. You didn't just see it, it saw you. And when it did, you realized that comfort is not a language spoken here. Heaven does not concern itself with your ease. Heaven does not bow to your understanding. The cherubim do not slow their flight for your sake. The wheels do not pause their turning to explain. The throne does not lower to make you feel welcome. It rises. And you collapse. Because everything you thought you could handle shatters the moment it breathes near you. You tell yourself to look. You tell yourself to be brave. But the longer you stare, the more the truth unfurls. This is not a place you belong. This is not a sight you can survive without mercy. Heaven is not your inheritance. It is his. And you are only here because he allowed it. The sound shakes your bones. Not music, not voices, just movement. Divine, unfiltered movement that rewrites the laws of nature with every shift. The angels flash like blades unsheathed. The throne crackles with a fire that sings in a language your soul remembers but your mind cannot bear. And the glory does not lean toward you. It does not reach out its hand. It simply exists. Brilliant, blinding, terrible, beautiful. And you understand why Isaiah wept, why Ezekiel collapsed, why Moses had to turn away. Because this is not a moment you recover from. This is a before and after. This is your undoing. You want to turn away, but something in you refuses. Not pride, not curiosity, worship. The kind that grows from fear and awe braided so tightly together you can't tell them apart anymore. You are not afraid he will hurt you. You are afraid he will not speak, that he will leave you here in this terror with nothing but the echo of glory and the memory of what it meant to be near. You do not want to flee. You want to endure, even if it crushes you, because now you know. Heaven was never meant to fit inside your expectations. It was never designed for your comfort. It exists for him. Every wing beat, every cry of holy, every flame, every silence. It is not meant to make you feel safe. It is meant to make you see. And what you see is not manageable. It is not soft. It is not safe. It is glory. And that glory is terrifying. You sit in silence, long after the vision ends. Not because you are trying to remember, but because you are afraid to forget. Your hands are still trembling, not violently, just enough that you keep them in your lap, palms down, hoping the ground might steady them. There is no voice ringing in your ears, no thunder, no echo of burning wings or spinning wheels, but their presence lingers, not in the air, in you. You breathe, and it feels like inhaling fire pressed into silence. You close your eyes and still see the movement, the faces, the eyes, the light. You blink, and it doesn't vanish. The first time you hear someone mention angels again, it's in passing. A child points to a painting. Some soft-winged figure in a flowing white robe, hands folded, eyes serene. You say nothing. You try to nod, to smile, but your mouth won't move. Not because of disbelief, because of memory. Because the thing in that painting is not what you saw. That thing never shook the sky. That thing never split the air with flame. That thing never watched creation rise and fall without blinking. That thing never made your soul cower in awe while your heart tried to beat through stone. You stare at the image and you want to laugh. Not because it's funny, because it's wrong. You hear a prayer where someone asks God to send his angels, and you flinch. Not from offense, from recognition. You remember the way they moved, how they didn't walk, didn't float, didn't descend. They arrived, like a command given shape, like lightning remembering it was once a message. You remember the sound of their wings, not like birds or whispers or lullabies, but like thunder tied down and forced into silence. You remember the eyes, not one pair, not two, but dozens. Two, and none of them closed. Watching, always watching. You remember the fire between them, not a blaze, a presence, and the way the ground near it refused to stay still. You remember the throne above them, and the way every creature aligned like it was wired into obedience, not out of fear, out of knowing that even they, those beings made of light and motion and silence and worship, would not speak unless commanded, would not move unless sent, would not look unless permitted. You remember the seraphim with 6 wings, their faces veiled, their feet hidden, their voices cracked open in worship that never stopped. Holy, 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 not chanted, cried, like the word was too full to hold inside. And you remember what it felt like to hear that cry echo through your bones. You thought angels were guardians. You thought they were messengers. Now you know better. They are witnesses. Witnesses of glory, of judgment, of the moments when heaven bends low enough for earth to tremble. They carry swords made of truth. They burn with obedience. They do not sing lullabies. They sing realities. Realities that shake the sky and wake the soul. You will never use their name casually again. You will never picture them as anything less than what they are. Terrible, beautiful, blazing, alive. You do not speak of it often. You have learned to guard it. Not because you fear disbelief, because you fear turning something holy into something familiar. You know what it cost to see them. You know what it broke open inside you, and you know what it will never let you return to. The world goes on. Markets fill. Festivals rise. Children draw wings on robes and hang them on walls. But when you see them now, you weep, you laugh, you tremble. Because they do not know. But you do. You saw them.